What is up, guys? It is Marcus from Perspective Sports, and I am operating on 3 whole hours of sleep because I am absolutely pumped about the start of NBA free agency. And you know what? Everything always starts off a little slow, so I had to keep myself busy. I was watching a bunch of shows like The Prophet, Celebrity Family Feud, The Currys vs. Pauls was pretty funny. Played a couple of games of Fortnite. I do have a second channel where I game, and I do on Twitch, so those links are in the description if you're interested. And then I just started editing and, working on different things. So I kept myself pretty busy. So what I wanted to do for this video is put it in more of a timeline format to keep you up to date from what was happening around what time at night. And so without further ado, let's dive right into it. And at 9:23 p.m. June 30th, 2018, ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski said the NBA teams were informed that the salary cap had been raised to $101.8 million, later corrected it to $101.9 million. The luxury tax was set at $123 million. The non-taxpayers mid-level exception, also called mile, was set at $8.6 million, while the taxpayers mile was set at $5.3 million. The room mid-level exception was set at $4.4 million, and the biannual exception was set at $3.4 million. On the channel, we've briefly discussed these things, but I'm going to go into depth and explain to you what each one means. Now, these definitions I found from hooprumors.com. They seem to be more of the simplest ones you can find. You can also find this on CBAFAQ.com, a website that I spend a lot of time on because the information on there is really interesting. The non-taxpayers mid-level exception is the primary tool available for over-the-cap teams to add free agents as long as they haven't dipped below the cap or don't go over the tax apron. The taxpayers mid-level exception is if an over-the-cap team currently projects to be a taxpayer or expects to move into the tax territory later in the season. This one says 2017, 2018, but I still think that applies even in the 2018-2019 season. But as a result of using this exception, you'll have less of a mid-level exception than if you were a non-taxpayer. This one's a bit tricky, the room exception, because if you are under the cap, you lose the right to the full mid-level exception, but you can now use this exception in order to go over the cap to sign a player. So this applies to teams that are under the cap that want to go over to bring in a player. And then we have the biannual exception that is its name. You can only use it every other year. And a fun fact is the Clippers are the only team that can't use it this offseason, technically speaking. And now let's get into the signings. At about 10:23 p.m., the Golden State Warriors and two-time Finals MVP Kevin Durant agreed on a 2-year, $61 million max deal. This will include a player option, meaning Kevin Durant can opt out again next year. Kevin Durant put up 26.4 points per game, 6.8 rebounds per game, 5.4 assists per game, and 34.2 minutes per game last season for the Golden State Warriors. At about 11:05 p.m., the Denver Nuggets and shooting guard Will Barton agreed to a 4-year, $50 million extension. Will Barton put up 15.7 points per game, 5 rebounds per game, 4.1 assists per game, and 33.1 minutes per game last season for the Denver Nuggets. And then the Nuggets didn't stop there. At 11:42 p.m., the Denver Nuggets pulled a double whammy, agreeing to terms with young stud center Nikola Jokic on a 5-year, $148 million max deal. And I absolutely love Nikola Jokic. In my opinion, it's between him and Jrue Holiday for the most underrated player in the league. Jokic put up 18.5 points per game, 10.7 rebounds per game, 6.1 assists per game, and 32.6 minutes per game last season for the Denver Nuggets. And then at about 11:42 p.m., almost midnight, the Oklahoma City Thunder pulled the Los Angeles Clippers. But instead of locking Paul George in his house, like they did with DeAndre Jordan, they took him out to a party. But people who attended the party had to sign a non-disclosure, and the party included big names like Sam Presti, the Thunder's GM, Russell Westbrook, and Aaron Mintz, Paul George's agent, and it worked. Paul George told OKC fans, "I'm here to stay," as he signed a 4-year, $137 million max offer with a player option for the 4th year. Paul George put up 21.9 points per game, 5.7 rebounds per game, 3.3 assists per game, and 36.6 minutes per game for the Oklahoma City Thunder last season. And then the clock struck midnight and free agency was officially open. And at about 12 a.m., the Indiana Pacers and small forward Doug McDermott agreed to a 3-year, $22 million deal. The Milwaukee Bucks and Ersan Ilyasova agreed to a 3-year, $21 million deal. The Houston Rockets and Chris Paul agreed to a 4-year, $160 million max offer with a play option for the 4th year, but he likely won't sign it until LeBron makes his decision. And then at about 12:15, the Dallas Mavericks and center DeAndre Jordan agreed to a 1-year, $12 million deal. And this deal was 3 years late. But I'm happy to see Mark Cuban and DeAndre Jordan left the past in the past and got this deal done. And then the Oklahoma City Thunder re-signed small forward Jeremy Grant to a 3-year, $27 million deal. The Boston Celtics re-signed Aaron Baines to a 2-year, $11 million deal. Baines was a big part of the Celtics team, whether you want to give him the credit or not. Then at about 12:45 a.m., the Phoenix Suns and small forward Trevor Ariza agreed to a 1-year, $15 million deal. And this deal shocked me because I understand, go get your money, Trevor, but you kind of have to kiss winning goodbye. This shows how aggressive teams are right now. While the Rockets wait on LeBron, they were waiting on Paul George, etc., they went and got Trevor Ariza. They didn't wait around. They didn't play the waiting game. And as for Ariza, he'll be stepping into a leadership role as an older player on a very, very young team. The average age was 24.5 years old, the youngest team in the NBA. So he'll have to be that veteran in the locker room, and he'll also have to be that leader on the court. At about 12:45, the Brooklyn Nets and power forward / center Ed Davis agreed to a 1-year, $4.4 million deal. And the Memphis Grizzlies and Amari Caspi agreed to a 1-year deal. We don't really know the numbers on that yet. And then the Minnesota Timberwolves and point guard Derrick Rose agreed to stay together with a 1-year, $2.4 million deal. At about 1 a.m., the San Antonio Spurs and shooting guard Marco Bellinelli agreed to a 2-year, $12 million deal. At about 1:30 to 2:30 a.m., the Portland Trail Blazers and shooting guard Nick Stauskas agreed to a 1-year minimum deal. The Rockets and shooting guard Gerald Green agreed to a 1-year, $2.4 million deal. The Toronto Raptors and guard Fred VanVleet agreed to stay together on a 2-year, $18 million deal. And then we do have some non-signing / trading news. The Phoenix Suns do waive point guard Tyler Ulis. The Minnesota Timberwolves released Cole Aldridge to avoid that $6.9 million guarantee. The Timberwolves also announced they'll be offering Jimmy Butler a 4-year, $110 million max offer when he becomes eligible on July 9th. Center DeMarcus Cousins will meet with the Los Angeles Lakers and New Orleans Pelicans. And then we have the Philadelphia 76ers and LeBron James representatives are meeting right now in LA. LeBron will not be in attendance. And then the Los Angeles Lakers are no longer aggressively targeting Kawhi Leonard. Well, there you guys have it. This has been the day 1 recap of NBA free agency. This is one of my favorite times of the year. Let me know what you think about the signings. Did you like what your team did? Where do you think LeBron will end up? I look forward to reading your comments down in the comment section below. I'll see you there.